morning. You are on ASMM Digital Small Business Connections. We are the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Our goal each and every week is to give you something you can walk away with. Sometimes it is ethereal. Is that the word? It's something that you walk away with in a leadership. You walk away with something that you can think about your own self-development. You walk away with things you can think about business development. Today we're going to talk about something that is really more concrete. It's about creating podcasts, why you should do it, how you should do it, and what you're going to get from it. So it's going to be a little more in-depth and much more concrete to walk away with. Before we start, I do want to remind you that you should subscribe. Subscribe at youtube.com/BrennanAnnie or anywhere you are listening to this podcast. Also, if you have time, and actually even if you don't, if you can take time, please go over and review us. So review us on any of the places where you're listening to the podcast itself. It does make a difference to us because we are a small business. We run this as a separate thing from our actual business, which is a marketing company, but it does help us to be able to grow this. And I have really big goals for this podcast. So please do review us if you have a chance. If you don't like it, send me something and let me know. What is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I can improve? Because I really would like to have you come back. I usually say we're live. Today we are not live. I usually ask you to ask questions, but if you leave comments wherever you're listening to this, we'll come back and answer them because we are a digital marketing agency, so we know the importance of doing that. So please do that. So our guest today is Justin Hornback. He's from Snapshots Made Yesterday, which is a podcast about those little memories you make. But he's going to talk to you about how this is almost a hobby for him. It's not a job. It's not something he does to grow a business. It's something he's doing because he's enjoying it. And I thought he was a perfect person to have on today because he can talk to the fact that it's not rocket science. You can do this. If you want to do it, you can do it. So Justin, hi, how are you?
Hello, glad to be here. And
yeah,
it's not rocket science because if people that know me, they would know. If he can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, there you go. I did it accidentally. Do you know this? I did it completely.
I think I know your story. No.
I was like, I've got to get my clients in front of people. I have followers on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So why don't I put my clients on an interview show? I'll do, a few weeks and I'll bring in each of my clients. And then it suddenly became a podcast. Hey. So it was like, oh, okay. So there you go. I have a show.
Yeah. Well, and like mine, I had never listened to a podcast until I think it was like February of 2019.
Oh, wow.
I was not I don't know if I'm old school, if that's what you'd say, but I don't like to jump on everything immediately.
Right.
Necessarily. I like to kind of see it through. Well, of course, podcasting's been around for, I don't know, 150 years now, it seems like.
Exactly.
But I kept hearing about it. I was like, why in the world of people? So then I started listening to one because I stumbled into it. And then I started listening to more and I was like, this is really cool. And it was before I started my blog, which if you go to my website, the last post I think was in August. So it's been I don't blog as much.
Right. Well, it's partially when you start doing this, when you start doing it by podcast, suddenly you're like, oh, there's more. It's more, it gives back more. That's right. Well, I am curious though. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What was the podcast that brought you to podcast?
I'm a huge hotel nerd and hospitality. So I worked in hotels when I was younger. And then I was a big fan of Hotel Impossible, if you've heard of that, with Anthony Melchiori. So I like Anthony Melchiori. And then I found out that he had a podcast with another gentleman, Glenn Houseman, who's a big hospitality guy. So I started listening to that and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool because I get to listen to the guy that I've just, watched and is inspiring for a while. And that's what got me into it. So I started listening to that and I got hooked and then went on. But you're right. It's more personal because in my opinion, you get to hear that person's voice. Right. I'm not reading and creating something. I'm actually hearing the inflections and the feeling behind the words. So it changes things a lot.
It really does. So my first was, and it was years ago, it was Chris Russell. Actually, he's on Twitter, but Chris Russell from Run, Run, Live. And I don't even remember what turned me on to listening to him, but I remember I would go for a run and I would have him in my ear for an hour because he'd talk for an hour. And I loved it. And I listened to him for weeks and weeks, and then I would contact him on Twitter and we would talk. And now we're friends. Actually, I just got an email from him last night about something new. But I'm like, isn't that funny that
Isn't that something?
carry
Yeah.
him around in your
Well,
head like that?
and I didn't say so. The name of the podcast with Glenn Houseman is No Vacancy with Glenn Houseman, and it's hosted by Glenn Houseman and Anthony Melchiori. So shout out to them because they are basically the reason that I got into it, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
and my wife, because my
And
wife
your
was
wife.
a big supporter. Yes.
That's right. So what does she think? So you're doing these podcasts. How often do you do them?
I was doing them once a week because I started in March of 2000 of this year of 2020.
Okay.
And it was kept saying, well, because I'm a creative person, I guess. I mean, I just love to be able to do things and try new things out. So I had mentioned it to her, and she was like, "You should just do it.
Yeah.
Just try it, and if you don't like it, you can just stop. It doesn't matter." So it's been it helps a lot that she's very supportive of it, and then that I'm able to channel a different type of creativity,
Right.
in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. Yeah, my kids think it's really cool. That's the fun thing. I joke around that they think I'm a nerd because I don't have enough followers on YouTube. But the truth is, they're like, "Oh, my mom's a podcaster. She has a show."
And look at the amount of people that you what'd you say 100 and what did you say
108 people. So you're my 108th person.
Yeah. So I mean, I would have never asked people like to try and connect with people until this year. There was just something that, we're stuck at home, not going to work, and everything is what it is. What do I have to lose by saying, "Hey, would you mind to talk and come on and do this?" And then you get to know people. Well, and then there's this whole reciprocal thing. Then that gets spread. Well, I know somebody who should come on your podcast after that, or that you should talk to this person. And it's just like, it's mind blowing.
It is. It is absolutely mind blowing. So actually, I'm going to jump to that because we were going to talk about the benefits of podcasting. So part of it is this year for me, the same thing that you're saying is that, yeah, we could have been lonely. This could have been I moved to a whole new area. I moved from Anne Arundel County to Montgomery County and nobody out here. But
okay,
I had
now where? What
connections.
state? I don't know this.
Maryland.
In Maryland, okay. I'm in Kentucky, so see,
Okay.
yeah.
Exactly. So we're in Maryland,
It's wild.
but it's been great. I've met more people this year than I've ever met before, and had more conversations and meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, my goal is to have people take something away from every single episode. But the truth is, I've taken away something from every single episode. I could go back and tell you, oh, this is something I took away from this person or this person or this person. With each and every episode, I have learned something new.
Yeah. And it's a new connection. And like for me, so I just started like you had said, I like to snapshots made yesterday. So I focus on those little snapshots, the snapshot moments. And that's been really cool to hear different people's stories, of what got them somewhere or what transpired to do it. And then I kept in the like March and April and May, I kept telling my wife, all those small businesses, they need a voice. And I kept saying, I just wish I felt comfortable enough to approach these people to say, "Hey, tell me the story behind your restaurant, your small business or whatever." And I just was not confident enough in doing that. I just didn't do it. Not until I think it was July, like mid-July, when I started reaching out to small businesses. Because it was like, okay, there are people out there struggling. If I can have two people that listen and maybe end up supporting them somehow, I'm fine. If nothing else, I'm supporting them. And that shows them that I care. And hopefully
Right.
that means something, So I had been doing that off and on with talking with small businesses. So that was a huge benefit that I got to hear their story that I'd never heard before
Right.
and got a new connection with that. And then from that, the audience that ended up listening to it, like there were people that were listening because you can look at your stats, and you kind of guess. But if you drop an episode, the first episode of the month, and it's being picked up in Tennessee and Florida and a
Right.
couple other states, and you're like, okay, that's pretty cool that not just people here at home are listening to this, but other people. And
Yes.
that to me was helping because I thought, well, maybe these stories then are helping other small businesses or anybody. I mean, really,
Right,
anybody.
right, exactly. Well, and that is we talked about. I do a charity called Burgers and Bands for Suicide Prevention, and sharing stories. It's incredibly powerful. It is incredibly powerful when somebody shares their story with you because for us, we talked about depression. We talked about the fact that I went through depression, my child went through depression, and as soon as I talk about it, somebody goes, you can almost see their shoulders relax and them go, oh, me too,
Yeah.
right? And so when you talk about business and you say, 6 o'clock at night, I want to bang my head into the desk and think, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? And the other business owner goes, oh gosh, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
alone in this, right?
Yeah.
So those stories are very, very powerful. So that's a huge benefit. I thought one of the other benefits to be a podcaster, why start a podcast? One of the things I didn't think about is the fact that I've got to learn something new. So, we're all of us are getting
Yeah.
older, whether you're, 25 now or not, we're all getting older every day, right?
Right.
And there comes a point where you sort of stop learning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this gives you the opportunity to have to learn. I have to learn what's the equipment I'm going to use. Where am I going to host it, which we're going to talk about, but what is the lighting going to be like? All of these things I had to go and learn and research and then improve on. So
Well,
that's a huge benefit.
yeah, and like we're doing this video. So this is the first podcast that I've been on where I've done video.
Right.
So you do, that's another, like you do not everything has to be video. You can simply do audio. Mine's only audio. That's all I do.
Okay.
I don't have a YouTube channel or anything. So I always just do audio. And I guess because it's more relaxing for me. I'm not sure. That's just kind
Right.
of that's how I do. And I'm always moving around like as much as I am now. So that's
Right.
and nobody
Well,
gets to see it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny because mine wasn't supposed to be a podcast. I was
Right.
just going
Right.
to do video to show people. And then in the middle of COVID, actually, so mid-March, I hired somebody. And when I hired her, I was like, what do you think about I said, I think we can do this, but can you just pull the audio off and put it
Yeah.
up as a podcast? And she did. And we were like, well, that's really cool that you can do that, right?
Well, yeah, because look at what so from this video, then it's on YouTube. Then you put it up on your podcast platform. And then if you transcribe it, now you've got the blog.
Exactly.
Which I don't like. I know all of these things. I don't do them. You can call me lazy if you want, but
I haven't transcribed it yet either.
I just enjoy what it depends on what level I guess you want to do.
Right.
There's like the goal. So I'm here, and at some point, if everything continues and I'm still doing it, and then maybe I'll add something. Maybe I'll add video.
Right.
And then maybe I'll add, so you can get from this one little thing. It's like the candy oranges, you unwrap it and you got the orange, but you got all those individual peels. So now you can start breaking that apart, and do that. And they're good. So.
Well, and let's talk about that. A lot of people think I can't start until I have all my ducks in a row. And no. I mean, literally started by accident. You started because you thought it might be fun.
I'll tell you what, it's easier to start than it is starting a website.
Yes.
I mean, that's how I feel, because finding the website, then I had to buy that. Then I had to get this and that and all that. Starting a podcast, you need a host, a hosting site and a name, and a phone.
Right, and a phone.
To record it.
Yes. Exactly. So
I
let's
know I'm
move on
jumping
to
around.
that.
I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect, actually. It's really good. Let's jump around to that. So people are like, well, I need to have the big mic. And you do see people, as a matter of fact, if you look, I don't know if you had a chance to look, but I created a graphic for this today, and it's a picture of the big mic and all of that. But people think that's what you have to have. And you have to have a soundboard of some sort,
No.
and you have to have a producer. And no, I mean, you can literally do it on your phone, or I do it on my Mac,
Yeah, and
right?
I meant to get it out. I have this little bitty, I got it off of Amazon. It's like this big.
Uh-huh.
It's a microphone that'll plug into your phone. So you can,
Okay.
if you want to feel a little more special, and it becomes like a lapel and
Right.
a lapel mic. So I have that, like if I'm off on the out somewhere to do, or if I want my son to record something, or if he wants to record, because he's kind of caught into that now
Yes.
and has spent a lot of pretend time. He's 3 years old, and
Okay.
he'll go around and pretend to record. And then the other day, I think it was last week sometime, he was editing his recording.
Oh, how funny. Interesting. That's so
So
funny.
and when I was little, I got a video camera when I was 5, and I loved to film. I still love film.
Yes.
And that getting to play around with that was fun. So it's neat to see him. But yeah, you don't need anything. I have a mic, if I can get
Right.
it up here without making a bunch of. So
Oh, there you go. Yep.
mine's a Shure SM58. Pretty sure that's what I've got. And I have a Zoom recorder. The little hand,
Okay.
it's down. Everything's connected. Or I would show you.
Right.
But I don't want to lose you.
Right.
So I have that, but you don't need it. You literally just need your phone.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's all.
I have literally had people call in from their phone
Yeah.
in their car
Yeah.
driving down the road to talk to me. It
Yeah.
really is that simple.
And
So,
you just have to be able to record it. That's all. Yeah. I mean, a lot of like we're doing this. StreamYard is nice because I've I guess watched some things through StreamYard. I've never used StreamYard. I usually use Zoom or Skype. Skype is the other
right.
way to record, but you can have that on your phone too. And I mean,
Exactly.
like do not let the equipment get in your way. You have to start somewhere. And if you're just going to cancel yourself out because, well, I don't have the $800 mic, that's
Right.
just, yeah, don't, that's
Exactly.
a cheap out, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it actually. I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed oh, I can't remember who I was interviewing, but I was telling them about Dan Willis, who was one of my first guests on the show. And Dan was talking about how he has a YouTube channel. And his very first video is still up there. He says it's still up there. It wasn't perfect by far because literally after he posted it and a few weeks later he went back to listen to it, he realized the audio didn't record. So it's him talking, no sound, but he says he still has, thousands of views on that thing and it's been up there, for the past 10 years, but he doesn't take it down because he's like, it's what I did and it's okay.
Yeah,
And you'll get better. If you start perfect, where do you have to go after that,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the hardest things for me to understand when I started this was hosting. How does this happen? And what do you do? And what do you have to know? And so actually, I'll tell you, I use Libsyn,
Hmm.
Libsyn. Is that the one you use, or do you use a different
I
one?
use Podbean, Podbean. I use Podbean.
Okay.
And I did
Okay.
some. I was the same. Like I think of it in like 3 tiers. You have your bottom tier, which would be your free, and
Uh-huh.
Anchor. I think Anchor FM is a free one, but you have to
Okay.
do on that one. I think you have to do their ads somewhere in your episode. You'll have to do.
Okay.
That's how it ends up being free. And but there are limitations to a lot of it. So you have to watch out what you're doing because sometimes you don't necessarily, at least from my understanding, you don't necessarily own everything. You
Right.
don't have as much control. Like I want it to go out if you want it to go out on Pandora or something, depending on the platform you're on, you may not be able to get it out there, or they have it out there on their
Right.
own. So yes, it's on there, but do you have that? So if you took it from Anchor and went to
Right.
Libsyn, would it go with you? Like that's
Right.
kind of the thing. So that was a big thing for me on if I'm not paying for it, what happens if I decide to pay for it to maybe get better?
Right.
What am
Right.
I going to
Exactly.
lose in that, or what's going to be? And so I yeah. So you've got your bottom tier. I would say Podbean is in the middle. I don't know. Like I've always heard Libsyn's like the best. So
I don't know. I make a lot of confessions on this show. I used Libsyn. When I called Whitney and I said, "Hey, let's put this up on a podcast," and she says, "How do I do that?" And I said, it's been a really long time. But back in 2009, or I think, I had a podcast about running. And I think there were 10 episodes because then all hell broke loose in our family. And it's 2012, actually. All hell broke loose in our family. And we're like, okay, that's got to go. I don't have time for it. But I was like, I used Libsyn then because Chris at Run Run Live used Libsyn. And so I'm like, use that. And now I think there are better ones out there. I think there are bigger ones. There are ones that will actually, so Chris Russell, I've mentioned him a couple of times. And let me just say this, he's doing a show now called After the Apocalypse. So if you get a chance when you're finished with this, it is not hospitality. It is not business at all. It is literally a serial podcast. And it is every week he's going to do a new little episode, 11 minutes. It was 11 minutes. And he's written a zombie story, I think.
that's cool.
So it's really neat.
That's
But
cool.
what he's using with that is a whole different hosting thing where he basically gives them the words. They find a voice actor who acts it out or reads it, right? And then they do all the producing for him. So he doesn't have to do anything. So that's a whole
And
other
that,
level.
yeah, that's a whole other, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only limitation on it is yourself.
Yes.
I mean, you can do anything. And I mean, it's like, I always enjoyed radio. And when I was young, I thought, oh, well, I'll be on the radio someday, maybe. I didn't want to do
Right.
that. But I mean, podcasting is a form. I mean, it's all encompassing and it continues to grow. And I mean, if you look at any of the podcasting stuff, it looks like, I mean, I forget how many millions of podcasts there are. And then they grew, a whole lot this year.
Right.
And it's going to continue to grow. And advertising is going to change, I think, on podcasting, because it's like the reason that I like it, I don't have to worry about commercials. Or if I do, they're like 10, 15 seconds. And there's usually
Exactly.
one, and I'm done. And then I can get back to what I want.
Exactly. Well, and I shouldn't admit this, but I will tell you. Oh my gosh, Tim Ferriss. So Tim Ferriss has a podcast that I really like a lot. It is very informative. And as a business owner, first of all, I'll go for a walk, and it usually takes 2 full walks for me to get through one episode. They're very, very long. And he has the most amazing guests on. He also has the longest commercials I've ever heard in my entire life. And actually, it was what was turning me off from that podcast for the longest time. And finally, I realized that I could just hit the 30-second, 30-second, 30-second and just fast forward through them.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't admit that that's what I do, but I do, because they just were driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it'd be cool. Like, I don't make any money off of mine. Mine is solely just for fun, just to be able to do, hey, if somebody wants to pay me $3,000 to do an episode, okay. I mean,
yeah,
maybe at that point. But, I mean, and that's the fun part. It's been rewarding not having to worry about a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, I can just talk to people and put it up. And then I get to have fun with the recording. I mean, and I get to meet people. So, I mean, I've seen you on Twitter. I met you on Twitter.
Exactly.
And then look, now here I am. And so it's just really cool.
It really is.
It breaks down a lot of barriers.
It really does. It makes you more personable. And one of the things,
Yeah.
so the next thing we're going to talk about is marketing your podcast. But I want to say this as far as a benefit goes. We talked about it. So you said you make no money. I have no advertisers yet. I mean, I do, but they are small local people, right?
Yeah.
Mostly
Yeah.
my clients. But what I do get out of this is I get clients. I actually have people call me and say, "Hey, can you help me do a podcast? Or can you help me market my podcast? Or can you help me market my business?" Those are things that are happening because I have a podcast. I have something here. And I think that you could think about this if you are a plumber, right?
Oh yeah.
You could do a podcast on, honestly, I think it'd be really funny for a plumber to literally just do funny stories about things that happen to them, whatever it is. If it's like, I read a story recently about a guy who found a prosthetic leg in the septic system. I'm like, that is a great story,
How
right?
did that get there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there are any number of things you can do depending on what your business is,
Yeah.
and you'll get business from it.
Right. Well, okay. So let me ask you, was
Uh-huh.
your intent, once this became a podcast for you, was your intent to then help other people with podcasts? Like, or that's the
No,
surprise that came out of it?
that was the
Yeah.
surprise that came out
So,
of it. Yes.
yes. I mean,
My intent was to help my clients. And actually, I will tell you, every single one of them got a new client from being on the podcast.
that's great.
So, and that happens almost every week. I have somebody call, who comes on and they'll call me back and they're like, "You're not going to believe it, but somebody called and asked me to do this for them."
That's
Right.
great.
And yeah, it's great.
And you're doing exactly what you wanted to do, which is,
Exactly.
and that's the rewarding part. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Maybe I don't set my expectations too high,
I
but it's just, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it for fun. If I'm not expecting anything from it, everything that happens from it is above and beyond what I would have possibly expected. So,
Exactly.
hey, why not? That's awesome.
Well, let me tell you this, Justin. So I own a digital marketing agency.
Right.
How that started was in 2007. I started a blog called Anne's Running Commentary. I wrote all about running. And I was like, at the time, Facebook had just come out, and I thought, gosh, I bet you could use this Facebook thing to market what you write. So I started putting it out there, and then I had people all over the world reading my blog and writing me and talking to me about my blog. And then I started a podcast from it, and I started a YouTube channel. And then people started saying, "Hey, can you help me do that?" So, yes, I started it just for the fun of it. I started it just because I wanted to write about running. And now I own a digital marketing agency with clients, and I'm helping all kinds of businesses market their business, and you don't know what's going to come from it.
Yeah.
So put it out there, and maybe it's for your business. Maybe you're going to put something out there to try to grow your business, but maybe it's because you have a hobby that you really, maybe you want to.
Yeah. I lost you for just a second. Can you hear me? It says it's still recording. Are you there? Or is it me? Oh. I'll just sit and wave for Anne. But see, this is the fun part of live, though. Because,
There you go.
hey.
Because we go live and then we lose it.
Was it me?
It was totally me.
Oh.
My husband is in the garage and he is redoing some things, and he unplugged the router. So, fun. So, and the funny thing
But that's
is
the
he's
fun
trying to be
part of
quiet.
live. That's the fun part of all. Like, that's what I've enjoyed probably the most this year, is not just getting to, you see people in their real, true environment.
Absolutely.
Everything,
Absolutely.
everything is so perfect for everybody else. Oh, I wish my life was like that. Oh yeah, everybody. I mean, come on. That's why I think
Absolutely.
live has just made it all. It's just made it fun. Well,
I
good.
love it.
I'm glad it wasn't me.
It wasn't you, it was totally me, and but it's, you know what, it happens, and
It does.
it's a
Yeah.
good way to go on to with what we're talking about. Don't get so uptight that you don't do it. You
Right.
know, don't go, it's
Right.
gotta be perfect or I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about, because I wanted to say, what do you do in real life?
I work for a theater that's owned by a school district but operated separately.
Okay,
If that
okay.
makes, I mean, I know it's one of those, like,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah.
Um, but so I do box office, I run our social media,
Ah,
and do sound, we do video. I mean, we're a small group of people, so we all do a multiple things. So
right.
that's my day job.
Okay, which
Yep.
makes sense because I want to say I went to your website. And one of the things that I do for people who come on the show is I'll go to their website and I'll look and I'll say, "Hey, why don't you fix this? Why don't
Oh,
you do this?"
yeah,
Right?
don't look at my website
Oh,
right
your
now.
website is great. And you have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And most people don't do that. And you
Yeah.
do. And I love that. I love
Well,
that you're
good.
that
Well,
you're
hey,
putting it out there. So that's
wow.
that's kind of the extent of marketing. Now, I did a you can go and read it afterwards if you want to, but I did a blog post very shortly after I started this, probably 3 months in. And it was about how I've repurposed the content.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've taken each episode, it will go from here. I will put it up on my website as a blog post. Then I take it from there. Actually put it up on my website as a video. So there's a separate page with all the videos. It goes on YouTube. It goes on LinkedIn. It goes on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you know,
Yeah.
anywhere that we can put it. And then I use it. Sometimes I'll take short little snippets. If you said something funny, I'll pull that out and I'll post it all by itself. So there's so many ways you can market it. But really, as long as you've got the social media outlets, and you put it up a couple of times, you're going to find that it does pretty well.
Yeah. And it's really easy to do. And one of the things that I put off for the longest time was having like a graphic for my episodes.
Yes.
And because it was just, I don't know, I don't think I started till like August doing it. I'm
Okay.
ashamed to say it. So it was just the same thing. It was like my podcast logo, which doesn't really fit in the logo thing. I got that when I
Okay.
was doing the blog. I had somebody make it for me, and I just never changed it. And so then I kept hearing about
Right.
Canva, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I don't really need Canva to do what I want. And then I went and I thought, well, I'll try it for something. So I tried something there at work, and I went, somebody punch me in the face. Why have I not been using Canva? Because it's free,
It's
free, and it looks great. I'm
exactly.
like, what have I been doing? I mean,
Yes.
so I'm 34 years old. I've been working in, I used to call myself the social media manager or specialist for where I work. This year, after learning everything social media wise, I'm like, I am an idiot.
Well, and it changes every 5 minutes, right?
Oh my
So
gosh. So yeah, so I discovered, but it was so easy. I mean, I
it
could
is.
go in and make that. And that I feel like really changed my marketing,
Yes. Yeah.
because then I was able to, I'm actually like then using the correct size for Twitter and the
Right.
correct size for Instagram and Facebook. And I use Headliner. It's a Headliner app. You can have it on your phone or your computer, and that's where you can pull a snippet, make the whole episode of video. That with the little moving things. You can have it transcribed on there, like they'll automatically transcribe it. But I use it for like 30 or 2 minute video
I
just to
haven't
do.
heard a headliner. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look that
I
up.
I highly recommend it, and it's again, it's a free thing. If now
Okay.
you're limited on what you can do for a couple of, you can only do so many things per month, you know.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, that's good because that's all I'm
That's all
like
I
right at
need.
the limit of it.
There you
Hooray!
go.
And so, but it's easy. So then you can just put
Right.
your logo, and then you can have the little bar that moves, or put the transcription
Right.
on that. And that's really worked for Instagram for me.
That's good.
Facebook, now I don't know, like I like don't get hung up in the number of downloads. Like I
Yes.
don't know, I don't know where that fits in this, but don't. It's easy to do to begin with. I mean, it's really easy because then you're
Right.
going, oh my gosh, somebody has downloaded my episode. This is
Right.
like that's really cool. But don't get hung up in that. My numbers are not high by any
Right.
means, but that's not the point I'm doing it.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not, so if I get hung up in that, then I'm gonna skew myself in the wrong direction. So I was posting, Podbean will post a video of your podcast directly to Facebook. Like I can do that,
Okay.
or to
Yep.
LinkedIn. But I've only been doing it on Facebook. But of course, then you don't get to see the number of downloads
Right.
because it's a video on Facebook. So I stopped that after a while, and I was just posting the link with my logo. And then the next week, because I started only doing a podcast every twice a month, like every other Tuesday.
Right.
So the next week I would post the video of the podcast on Facebook. So I would give it a week to be able to come out and just try to drive people directly to the hosting site
Right.
and download it and then post the video. But the video didn't, it probably would perform better if it was like this,
Right.
if it were an actual video and not just a sound thing. So I don't
Yeah.
push that as much anymore, but the Headliner app works well for those quick snippets.
That's great. It's one of the things that we had to do, right? Because I'm listening to, so it goes up on YouTube. Don't have that many followers on YouTube. Then it goes up on Libsyn. We have, we're doing pretty well there for downloads. But it also, when we go live, so today we're only going live on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we go live on 3 different Facebook pages and Twitter and a bunch of places. But you were kind enough to do this in December. It's going to be coming out in January. The reason, and there's only, I put it on YouTube because I don't want anybody else to have to do that while I'm gone. I'm going to have to miss most of January. So I was like, I'm not going to be here. I need something to be recorded. I need them to be, there. But when it goes out to all those places, I have a really hard time. I'm like, I have no idea how many people listen to one episode because it went out on 10 different places,
Right.
instead of just the one.
Yeah. And you just have to like add the numbers together.
Exactly.
But again, it's one of those like, and I guess it depends. I mean, if you're monetizing it, then yeah, you have, you got to know if this is not working, I'm not getting money.
Right.
What do I do to make it work and to get in people's ears?
Exactly.
And I'm, so since I'm not doing it, but also like I sometimes worry that will bother a guest, that like I am putting it out there as best I can, but I'm not putting money behind it because I don't. Where's that money coming from?
Right, exactly. Well, so let me tell you this. So, and I am not the biggest Gary Vee fan of all time. He's fine. I just don't love him. But he did say something once that I thought was really very good to remember. And he said, it doesn't matter how many people are listening, because if 1,000 people listen and none of them respond, then you got nothing. But what if 1,000? What if 2 people are listening and one of them is the head of CBS Radio?
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
And then he goes, gosh, right? So it matters who's listening. So for me, as long as I've got people listening who are business owners who actually can take something away from this, then I'm good. I'm happy with that.
And I know we're on this topic, but I mean, I would also say you have to let your podcast breathe. You have to give it air. So, you start with an idea, yes. Then you start going with it. let that idea expand. I mean, just like
Right.
yours, you were doing your videos and look at what that came to. It,
Right.
but you let it breathe. So you have to you've got to let your creativity breathe and try things. Sure,
Right.
I have a basis. Like I know there's that whole, and I struggle with it, finding your niche or niche.
Right.
It's like a food. I always think of like,
well, somebody says your riches are in your niches, so I'm like,
yeah,
it's got to be niche.
yeah. So I know, and so I'm like, okay, but if I am somewhat broad enough, I may discover something. So, I mean, I'm not
Right.
I haven't had a podcast for a year yet. So to me, I feel like I still have time to do it. I can still talk to small businesses, I hope,
Right.
and hear their stories and share those. I can talk with you and hear your story and share those.
Right.
But am I only tied down to that? Can I, like, if I want to talk about a 1970s or 1980s TV show, can I do that?
Right.
So yes, I can. I may have to get creative and figure out what it is exactly that I want to turn that into. And I guess that's still part of marketing too, because you're marketing not just for people to listen, but you also want people to recommend you, and you want people to come on if that's
Right.
the kind of thing you're doing. Now, if I just want to sit and talk about eyeglass cleaner all day, I can
Right.
do that.
Right.
And somebody is going to listen.
That's exactly it. I think the proof is in the pudding because you said I listen to hospitality shows, and I'm like, well, that sounds really boring. That sounds
And-
terribly
but
boring.
but it's fascinating to me. And it's because
Right.
I worked in that industry, but is it for everybody? No.
Right.
But then they also get creative. Like you could
Yes.
dive into all of that. What kind of episodes then are they putting out? So
Right.
like I have a lot of oddities or nerd things, and I've been trying to do a whole like, well, I don't need to bring that on the podcast. I don't need to talk about it. Why not?
Why
It's
not?
mine. The
Exactly.
podcast is mine. Why can I not do that?
Well, I
If
want
it
to do one
doesn't
on
work, it doesn't work.
vacations for this, right? I want to do one on vacations on this show because I took a vacation to Kiowa Island. I went down there for a week and I came back absolutely on fire for my business, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so where would you go to let go of everything so that then your brain could reignite and go, oh, here are those ideas that you need? Because otherwise, you just get them all stuffed in your head and it gets packed too tight and nothing
Yeah.
moves around and you can't. That's a really good way of thinking of it. You just keep stuffing it in there and your brain can't function. So you've
I,
got to let go of some of it. And so
I'm a
vacations
big
would be great.
Yeah, and I'm a big. Ask me if I want to travel once a month. Yeah, because I enjoy those mental breaks. I
Yes.
look forward to, and I've always, maybe it's because we always camped in the summer when I was a kid, and we always went somewhere Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend.
Right.
And then fall break on Christmas or something. And I guess that's ingrained in me. I like those breaks. And it does. For me, I get to do that. I know we're diving off it, but that's
Right.
the
But
fun part
no,
of it, though. We
but
can do
that's
whatever
exactly
I
it.
want.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
can do whatever I want about it.
So actually, I want to do something. I do this, I said this is for small businesses. So let's talk about the theater. So it's a small theater in your town. What's the name of the theater?
Well, it's because it's owned by a school district. So it's Hardin County Schools Performing Arts Center. That's what it is.
Okay. Okay. So are they doing shows online?
We actually did we did Nutcracker, our annual Nutcracker. We only did it twice on a
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday before Christmas, and we live streamed it.
Good.
So there was no audience, but we had that, and then we were able to repurpose that content
There you
and
go.
offer it on demand.
Oh, that's
So
great.
that so that was It was a lot of pivoting.
Yeah.
That's what we've been, um, what our boss has been saying. You know, it's all about the pivoting, which is true.
Exactly, exactly. So actually, you guys may like to follow. There's a theater up here that I have been paying a lot of attention to. It's a children's theater. It's called Adventure Theater. It's in, I think, Silver Spring, Maryland. And you may want to follow them and see what they're doing and get some ideas from them. But and vice versa, I will tell them about what you guys just did and with the repurposing and the on demand because I think it's important. So, all right. So let's tell people one more time, what's your show about?
All right, so Snapshots Made Yesterday is talking about the snapshot moments. Like, I'd like to focus on maybe just one little thing that got the ball rolling for everything else. And it's limitless because it doesn't have to be on, we can do it if I talk about a small business, or like I got to do a Christmas episode. I put one together of favorite holiday moments.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
it's just, I like to look at the little things that went somewhere else.
Right. Well, and that's what we're going to talk about, right? We're going to talk
Yeah.
about how we had this year, actually, it ended up being 3 years of pure hell in our family that turned into a charity that is changing our community for the better and actually
Yeah.
change it. We took it to New Zealand, this little charity of ours.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's pretty amazing that started with just something that happened in our family. So a moment, and actually it really did. I'll tell you about it on your show. It's literally started with a moment and a glance in time.
It's just,
So yeah.
yeah. And some of the best things happen in those the little things.
Yep,
It's fun to
absolutely.
look back on.
So, well, I hope everybody got something from the show today. I feel like there was so much that we had, but I think the most important thing is to say, just start.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you really want to do a podcast, just start. There's no reason not to.
Oh, and I will say, like with Podbean, I know we talked about free. So with Podbean as the hosting site, you can get 5 hours free.
Okay.
So you just start. And that's where I started when I found out what I can do. If I get 5 hours in, like that was my goal.
Right.
If I do 5 hours worth and I'm still enjoying it, then I'll go ahead and put the money behind hosting for at least a year. And my goal then was to continue for at least a year.
Right.
If I'm still, so
if you're still enjoying it,
if
yeah.
I'm still enjoying it and I'm still doing it, then I can continue doing it. So
Exactly.
just do it. Just do it. I mean, if whatever you can do that's free, even if it's just doing it on YouTube.
Right. Well, and let's go back and say that. So you talked about the fact that you're going to do it for a year. People think of it as you record this video and it's done. People listen to it this week and that's done. The nice thing about doing this or putting it on podcast or however you do it, wherever you do it, is it's there. And so
Yeah.
I did a video and you guys can go look it up. I'll maybe put it in the show notes, but I did a video back in 2009 called Everybody Hates Cyclists. And it's tongue in cheek because I'm a cyclist and it's about how people drive by you and they throw things at you and they scream at you. But what we're actually doing when we're on the bike and you think we're swerving in front of you. Why it is that we do the things we do. Anyway, it still gets views and it still gets really mean comments. After all these years.
but see, and then you can repurpose. I mean, like any of the episodes I have this year, like with a small business, I've already been going, okay, in a year, I can do something with that. Like I can go back and revisit that episode. Right. So
exactly.
it's not one and done necessarily. Yeah. And there are episodes that will get, some people binge episodes.
Right. Oh
so,
yeah. I have somebody who just did that with like 30 of them.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. I'm like, who has the time? And then who wants to listen to, like, if you listen to me, I'm like, why do you want to, I'm glad you want to listen to me, but why? Tell me why.
I'm actually wondering if they're listening to me while they're going to sleep. Like listening and then it plays all night long.
At some point you're going to have to do one of those, all right, and now you need to go to the refrigerator and get,
Exactly.
You'll have to do that. If you're still listening,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. Give me 1 second to remind everybody what they need to do next, and I'll be right back with you. All right, everybody, it's super easy what you need to do next. Please, wherever you're listening to this, subscribe. If you're listening to this, please also go over to YouTube and subscribe there, because my kids think I'm a nerd because I'm still not at 1,000 subscribers over there. I need 1,000 subscribers to be able to monetize that little YouTube channel of mine. So please do go over there and subscribe. We didn't talk about that, but if you have a podcast, please ask your guests to subscribe and ask your guests to leave a review. It's a really easy way to market yourself just a little bit more. So that was one tip I meant to give you. I want to come back to you, Justin. This was really fun, and I can't believe we just met on Twitter.
Well, yeah. Always never be afraid to ask.
Exactly. No,
That's
it's really
just,
good.
I mean, if they say no, okay. There's
Well,
how many people are there in the world?
exactly. You
One
know what?
person says no? Okay.
I had this year, I mean, I had a lot of people, but the two that really stick out to me right now is I had Carlos Gill. Natalie Gregg was
Oh,
on
wow.
here. She's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I just had Chris Brogan.
Did you really?
I did. I know, right? So,
Wow.
because I asked and they said
How?
yes.
I mean, yeah. I don't think I ask enough. Because
Yeah.
I think I'm like, I don't know. I'm me. I'm Justin. I live in Kentucky. Why do I want to? Why
did somebody want to be on my show, right?
Yeah. Why?
But they do.
So
they like to do it. So ask away, because it is my next goal is to get Ann Hanley. I'd really like to have Ann Hanley on the show.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's the next one. So we'll keep, and Madeline Sklar.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. And I bet you will too. I mean, it's just, you have to start somewhere, and you just don't stop. You just keep asking.
Absolutely. So, well, you have, they're listening to this in the new year. It'll be 2021 when this comes out. But everybody else, if you yourself have a great new year. I hope it's a great new year for you.
And same to you and your family. Happy New Year. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and just stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. You hang on 1 second. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.